All right. Good afternoon or evening, depending where you are, everybody. My name is Susan Macbeth. I'm the founder and owner of Adventures by the Book. And we're really excited to have all of you here today for our semi annual Pitch Fest featuring fabulous Novel Network authors who are here to pitch their newest books to you in the hopes that you will pick it up and read it for yourself, your book club. Buy them as gifts, get them signed, whatever you want. We have really amazing authors presenting today and very diverse genres and stories. You're in for a treat. I also want to introduce our team behind the scenes. Debbie, who many of you have met, she will be coordinating all the stuff behind the scenes, as well as Sarah and Amber and Riley. I think you're there, Riley, as well. And let's see, each of the authors has about 4 minutes to present about their books. You all should have your cheat sheets. When we sent the Zoom instructions, you all got cheat sheets, so you should have those. You can set your camera to gallery view to see everybody, or you can set it to speaker view, which I would encourage since there's so many. And I'm asking the authors now if they could mute themselves before we get started, except for Kitty Zeldis, who is going to be our first guest speaker today. Let's see. Just a reminder, as I said, they're all Novel Network authors, which means that you can set up a visit with them for your book club. You can register your book club for free on novelnetwork.com and view our roster of over 150 authors. Check out their schedules, their books, and schedule a book club visit right there on the site. And if you want to find out more about an author, Sarah in the chat box will be typing the author's websites and information, and also information about where you can purchase books on our website. Thank you to those of you who have already purchased books. We've been shipping them out as we can. Some of them haven't been published yet, so we will send those out when they are published. But feel free to order them during the event, after the event. Make your notes on your cheat sheet. And I think we're about ready to get started. So we are going to start with the magnificent, stylish Kitty Zeldis, who is an award-winning Brooklyn author of 8 novels, including Not Our Kind, and over 35 books for children. That's amazing, Kitty. She will be a featured author at Superbook 5 this year, so we can't wait to see you in San Diego in February. Her newest novel, The Dressmakers of Prospect Heights, focuses on 3 women living in 1920s New York City and the secrets they hold. You have 4 minutes. Go, Kitty.
Okay, I'm going to repeat. Set in 1920s New Orleans and New York with a detour to Tsarist Russia, The Dressmakers of Prospect Heights is the story of 3 women: Beatrice Carr, a madam in New Orleans; Alice, an orphan in B's care; and Catherine, a newly married woman in Brooklyn whose greatest wish, to have a child, is disappointed again and again. The connections between them form the emotional backbone of this novel. But every novel has a backstory, and in this case there were 2. It was my job to knit them together. The first was New Orleans, a place that figures importantly in B's background and history. I first visited the city in 1988 and fell instantly in love. The melange of cultures, Southern, French, Spanish, the architecture, food, music, and history all contributed to its appeal. I learned about Storyville, or the district, a designated area in which prostitution was legal during the years 1898 to 1917. Not only legal, but on full and lavish display, as Basin Street, a major thoroughfare, was lined with brothels, one more opulent than the next. Their owners, often women, became celebrities of the demi-monde who wielded influence and power at a time and place when most women did neither. Guides to Sin City were published, and these so-called blue books, widely available at newsstands and tobacco shops, informed the steady stream of pleasure seekers about their vast array of choices. Along with some ads, the blue books were chiefly a listing of all the prostitutes working in the area. I saw some of these displayed in the Historical Society, and one entry read, Caucasian, 21, Jewish. Jewish prostitutes in New Orleans? Who knew? Not me. I was fascinated, and since I'm a novelist, not a historian, I decided that I wanted, or really needed, to imagine my way into such a life. I set about researching, and soon a character began to emerge. A young Jewish woman, far from home and cut off from family and friends, who finds herself pregnant by a man who dies before he can marry her. Dismissed from her job as a nanny, she finds work in a brothel, first as a maid, later a prostitute, and eventually a madam with a house of her own. The other strand comes from my grandmother, Tanya Brightman. Like B, Tanya was born in Russia to an atypically affluent Jewish family. Her father was a tanner, a profession Jews were allowed to have because it was so revolting. A chief component in the process was urine, that no one else wanted to do it. He was murdered in mysterious circumstances, and when her mother discovered his corpse dumped in front of their house, she took poison. But she didn't die. Instead, she rallied and left my grandmother, then 6, and her sister, 4, home alone while she went out selling whatever she could carry from their fine house, eventually amassing enough money to take her youngest children first to Riga and then New York. Tanya was an unhappy, difficult woman, prone to terrifying outbursts of rage. She was also a traumatized soul who did not fully understand the impact of her tragic past. I kept away from her, even shunned her. So when she died, I was wholly unprepared for the flood of grief and regret that I felt. I wished, oh, how I wished I had been more patient, more understanding, more loving. But it was too late. Yet she was alive in me, and her early life, with its shuddering sorrows, could and should form the basis of Bee's character. As I wrote, I was conscious of giving her the dignity and compassion that I'd withheld when she was alive. And although she never became a prostitute or madam, and never even visited, much less settled in New Orleans, it is her spirit that animates Beatrice Carr, and I can only hope I've done both of them justice in this book. Thank you.
Sounds amazing, Kitty. And 4 minutes, spot on.
I think it was even less when I timed it this morning, but okay, if it was 4, it was
Great
4.
job. The book sounds fascinating. And if you want to meet Kitty in person, February 18th at our Super Book event with 20 authors, Kitty will be there in person. So hope you can join us. Thank you, Kitty. Next up is Heather Webb. Heather Webb is a USA Today bestselling and award-winning author of 9 historical novels, including The Next Ship Home, Rodin's Love, and Strangers in the Night, which have won multiple awards, including Goodreads' top pick. Her new book, set to release in a few short weeks on February 6th, Queens of London, is a dark, glamorous tale about an all-female gang in 1925 London, led by the notorious Diamond Annie and the 40 Elephants. Sounds fascinating. Tell us more, Heather.
Thank you. So I will say, you probably know me. If you know me at all, you probably know me from The Next Ship Home. But I'm here to talk about Queens of London, and I'm just going to do a book cover shot because someone posted that in the comments. So here I am. So Queens of London, as Susan said, is about the first all-female crime syndicate in 1925 London. It was led by the most notorious female thief in UK history, and her name was Diamond Annie. So she's one of my main characters. And then I have her go head-to-head with Lillian Wiles, who was also a true-to-life person and one of the very first female chief inspectors at Scotland Yard. These two collide during a heist. They also crossed paths with a 10-year-old orphan on the run and her little sidekick dog, and a very clever shop clerk trying to make her way. So you have sort of different echelons of society and women sort of crossing paths and figuring out, what it means to help each other out. This is all about women helping women, but it's also about the ever-shifting meaning of justice, sort of the gray lines between the black and white. You get a little bit too about the burgeoning women's rights movement that's happening there in the UK, and how actually Hollywood played a little bit of a part in that, and of course World War I. So there's a rich tapestry during this time period. It's exactly what you expect when you think of the 20s. The Gen Palaces, the crazy roadsters, with the little spy, I can't think of the word, where you stick it on the top of your car and you're can't think of the word, but anyway, yeah, all the stuff that you picture from the mobster movies from the 1920s. It's very much a female Peaky Blinders, but it's also a bit tender too. So I think it's a really fun book. Readers so far are really loving it and connecting with it, and I hope that you will too. So that's it. And I think am I 2 minutes? I'm giving you guys
Wow.
a lot of leeway. Look, if you go over,
Okay.
I'm giving you extra.
Well, here, okay, we can read some of the comments that came in since we have a few minutes. Simon, who happens to be one of our new Adventures by the Book ambassadors. All right, my screen keeps scrolling down as a new comment starts. I can't read his comment. He says, my current historical fiction read is about Alice Diamond Mary Carr and the
Oh,
40
okay.
Elements if you love Peaky Blinders on Netflix, like you
Yeah,
said.
yeah, absolutely.
Somebody whose name isn't identified except as Samsung says, Heather was a guest at my book club for the next ship home. She is a fabulous speaker. Everyone loved her. Go to novelnetwork.com, book her
Thank
today.
you.
Mindy is looking forward to the Queens of London. And Riley typed in where you can find out more about Heather Webb. So thank you very much, Heather. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you for having me. And I'll see you in San Diego in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks.
Yes, I
Soon.
can't wait. So
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing you there again. If you want to come meet all these fabulous authors, San Diego, February 18th. All right. Thank you, Heather. All right. Next up, we have Julia Park Tracy. She is an award winning journalist, essayist, and poet who was selected as the Poet Laureate for Alameda, California in 2014 to 2017. Her new novel, The Bereaved, tells the inspiring true story of her third great grandmother, Martha, a poor widow, and the choices she made to survive with four hungry children as the Civil War erupted around her. Wow, what an amazing family story. We can't wait to hear more. Julia, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This book here, I'm going to hold it right in front of my face because of my blurred screen, is about the orphan train. It's called The Bereaved, and basically everyone in this book is bereaved. Everyone is sad about something. But as a journalist myself, I started out just doing some family history, and there's a little boy on the cover of this book, and that is this little boy who's my fourth great grandfather. Second great grandfather. And we didn't know very much about him because he was adopted. And we had this is a handwritten note that was in this fountain pen kind of handwriting and was hard to read. And when I finally broke through and figured out who he was with the help of the Orphan Train Museum, this whole world opened up to the story of his mother and what happened and why would a perfectly healthy woman give up her children for adoption, not just the one, but all four of her children. So pursuing this as a journalist and as enjoying genealogy, I kept going, and why and what happened and so on. And what ended up was it actually made a better novel than a book of nonfiction, because I was able to get inside Martha's head and find out, why would a mother make these hard decisions? And, as a mother myself, the hardest thing would be to give up my children and do it voluntarily, but to have it be what is best for them. I mean, it's like cutting off your arm or something. You're just like, yes, but it's for the best. You would do the best for your kids. So I have a ton of historical information around it, around the research that I did. I've worked with the Orphan Train Museum, and they called this particular case of the children and the parent, getting them back together again through my research. They called that the holy grail of their research stories. And in any case, lots of stories about the orphan train are out there, but there are no stories about the mothers who were left behind or the fathers. But the mothers in particular, it turns out that only 25% of the kids who went on the orphan train were actual orphans. So there were a lot of women left behind and a lot of broken hearts. So I hope you will love reading Martha and about the story and the struggles that she went through. And I hope you will learn to love the children who, her four children. You do learn a lot about them. The time era is the Civil War. So that is popping up around. If you're a Civil War fan, there's all kinds of stuff happening in right downtown in New York City. And if you like regional literature, it's all New York. Most of it's New York, upstate or New York City. But really it's got the grain of truth to it because it is a true story that has been fictionalized, in the sense of, I don't know what Martha was thinking, but I can guess as a mother. And one thing that happened as I was writing this book is that actually we lost our son, our only son, to suicide. And there was this moment where I couldn't write for like 2 years. And when I came back and revised the novel, I really understood Martha as a bereaved mother, and I really feel like I captured that moment where she's lost her son in a way that I don't think I could have in any other way. So I really feel like this is kind of a speaking from the ancestors, in some ways. I feel like I've been able to give Martha the ending that she deserved and that she would have liked. And gosh, I don't know what else to say, except I would love to chat with your book group, and I have tons of historical stuff to chat about, and happy to give you some of my background. So
Thank
there's
you,
the book.
Julia. And
Thank
so
you.
sorry to hear about your son.
Thank you so much.
such a tragic loss. I'm very sorry.
Yes.
As she said, she's available to book clubs. In fact, one of our attendees, Joni in New York, has already scheduled a visit with Julia. She's thinking ahead of time. So thank
Oh,
you for that.
awesome.
All right.
Thanks.
Next up, we have, we have Kate Thompson, who is appearing via a recorded. Okay, hang on just a minute. She is in London, so she has sent in a recording. So give us just a moment to cue that up. I think Debbie is queuing that up for us. So give us a minute, please. We don't hear that, Debbie.
We Let the Bullies Win. Elena was writing about censorship in the world today, but this conversation stretches back to the last century. My latest historical fiction novel, The Wartime Book Club, is set in Jersey during World War II. As those who read, let's wait for it, the Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society will know, the Channel Islands were the only British territory to be occupied during the Second World War. From enchanting cliff tops and white sandy bays to the pretty cobbled streets of St Helier, Jersey was known as the land of milk and honey. Very quickly, the German war machine turned a once idyllic island into a place of betrayal and dark deeds. The Wartime Book Club is set in Jersey Public Library and Jersey Post Office and is based on a true and untold story of resistance. We see an alternating narrative between headstrong Bee Gold, or Beatrice Gold, who works as the island's only postwoman, and her friend, the more cautious and curious Grace Lamotte, chief librarian. Incensed at what she sees as an act of treachery, Bee steams open informers' letters bound for the German commandant, then passes the letters on to Grace to warn islanders who have been denounced whilst peddling around on her book rounds. As the hostilities rage on, the library becomes the heart of an island at war and the centre of quiet resistance. Grace fights Nazi censorship by forming a weekly book club, and at great personal risk, she also delivers books to Jews in hiding. Her efforts are rewarded. No one, it seems, is more grateful for the spiritual food store of the public library than her patrons. Library loans soared during the occupation because reading was the only intellectual freedom that islanders still possessed, offering a powerful source of joy and solace and escape. On the brink of the Third Reich's collapse, Bee and Grace are arrested by the Gestapo, and their lives and that of the book clubs are thrown into peril. This novel is an unabashed love letter to Jersey and its people, as well as a tribute to the joy of reading and the power of books in our darkest hour. The stories in the book are based on true events and real people, and I've written plenty of articles in the back of the book so that the reader can discover more. I fell in love with Jersey on a trip to the Jersey Literary Festival in 2019. Its colour and charm is spellbinding. Warm pink granite farmhouses, glittering blue seas, lush green meadows. The wildflowers that smother the countryside fill the air with their fragrance, but there's something else in the air in Jersey, a sort of tangible sense of history, a connection to its cataclysmic past. You see reminders of it in the glimpses of bunkers buried beneath the wild brambles, but for me, history isn't about guns and fortifications and bunkers. It's about oral history, people. The most powerful reminders of the occupation come from the people themselves. I was immensely privileged to interview many islanders about their memories, and I listened spellbound to that wonderful back and forth, the sort of unfiltered gush of social history that brings the past alive. I love interviewing our wartime generation because the more you listen, the more you hear. It starts off about the day-to-day stuff like, victory waves and vermilion and tea dresses and spam, but then it graduates to the guts of wartime life, the pain and the loss, the sacrifice and the courage. When you start a conversation off without knowing where it will lead, the past is no longer sort of dusty and sealed off behind a door, but it's bright and fantastic and vividly real. If I've learnt one thing from writing historical fiction, it's that the past never fades, it only festers. We all have a story to tell. None of us have lived in a vacuum, so there must be millions of untold stories still floating around to tell, especially from the war years. I very much hope that you enjoy this story if you decide to read, which proves that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary things. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, from across the pond. And because we were queuing up her video, I forgot to introduce her. So Kate is an astonishing writer with a passion for capturing lost voices and untold social histories. She talked about her newest book, The Wartime Book Club, which goes on sale April 9th. It was inspired by true wartime events. So I hope you pick it up and invite her to your book club. Thank you, Kate. Next up, we have Susie Orman-Schall, who is the author of 5 novels about ambitious women, as well as a screenwriter who is currently shopping her first pilot. Ooh, exciting, congratulations, and feature-length screenplay. Her upcoming summer book that's released on June 4th, Anna Bright is Hiding Something. Ooh, I wonder what that is. Explores our fascination with female founders breaking barriers and sometimes behaving badly in the process. I love it. Susie, welcome. Can't wait to hear more.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. So human beings love stories about people succeeding, but we also, funnily enough, love stories, especially stories about bad people failing and getting their comeuppance. And what I've learned over the past few years through news stories and television shows that I've watched is that there are a lot of stories about women getting their comeuppance, and audiences freaking love that. So with that in mind, may I present Anna Bright is Hiding Something. So back in 2021, I was trying to come up with the idea for my next novel. I had early in the pandemic launched my book, which is called We Came Here to Shine. I lost my place for a second. In June 2020, right in the middle of the beginning of the pandemic. And this is uplifting historical fiction set at the 1939 New York World's Fair. So then fast forward to a year later, it's 2021. I'm trying to come up with the idea for my next book, and I did what most authors do in that situation. A lot of laundry, a lot of snacking, and a lot of swearing that I would never again be able to write another novel. But the whole time through the laundry and the snacking and the swearing, I found myself being fascinated by news stories that I was reading about women in business, female entrepreneurs, or as they're called in the industry, female founders. I read stories about their spectacular climbs founding companies, women like Anne Wojcicki of 23andMe, Sarah Blakely of Spanx, Melanie Perkins of Canva, and Whitney Wolfe Herd of Bumble. But I also read about their devastating falls from grace, women like Audrey Gelman of The Wing, Ty Haney of Outdoor Voices, and Steph Corey of Away. Then I read the book Bad Blood, which is nonfiction, Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup by John Carreyrou of the Wall Street Journal, about the most notorious female founder of them all, Elizabeth Holmes. And well, there was no turning back. My novel took off from there. Anna Bright is Hiding Something is an insightful and fast-paced story that explores the fascinating, ripped from the headline world of female founders. It focuses on 2 main characters. My first character is the enigmatic and arrogant Anna Bright, the founder of a company with a $10 billion valuation that is about to launch its first product, which will change the lives of people everywhere. My second character is an earnest and bold journalist named Jamie Roman, who writes for an online business magazine. The story hinges on how Jamie uncovers that Anna Bright is committing fraud, and Jamie works to expose that on the eve of Anna's IPO. The novel takes readers on a trip behind the scenes of modern workplaces and the ambitious women who populate them from Silicon Valley to New York City. It's an expose on female founders who are behaving badly and a love story, love letter to those who aren't. And if you loved Inventing Anna on Netflix or The Dropout on Hulu, then you are most definitely going to like this book. So far, I've been overwhelmed by the positive feedback I've received from early readers and reviewers, such as authors Joe Piazza, who called it the perfect summer page turner, and Annabelle Monahan, who said it knocked my socks off. And I was thrilled this week to get Kirkus Review, who gave my book a Get It designation and said it's an entertaining page turner about complicated, success-driven women. And now it's almost time to share it with the world. So I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to present Anna Bright is Hiding Something. There's a lot to discuss in this book for book clubs and all sorts of different groups. And I hope that you have as much fun reading it as I did writing it. And I'll leave you with one final question, actually, which is, aren't you curious to find out what exactly Anna Bright is hiding? Thank you.
Oh, hell yes, we're curious, Susie. We can't wait. Thank you so much. Next up, Renee Ryan. And just a reminder that we are doing book giveaways at the end. You have to be present to win, so don't go anywhere. Renee Ryan, another one of our Superbook authors this year, we have a great group this year, is an award-winning author who sold her first book in 2001 by winning the inaugural Dorchester Romantic Times New Historical Voice Contest. Congratulations, Renee. She has since sold over 30 books to several publishers. Her newest novel, The Paris Housekeeper, tells a moving story of bravery and resilience in World War II Paris as one woman's survival becomes dependent on impossibly difficult choices. Welcome, Renee.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm gonna show the cover. I love the cover. I think it's very eye-popping. So first of all, following Susie, oh my gosh, forgive me, it's not going to be a good pitch like Susie's. That was amazing. That was really amazing. Okay, so back to the Paris Housekeeper. I was in a similar scenario as Susie. This was a second book on a 2-book contract, and I didn't know what I was going to write, other than my publisher really wanted me to write a World War II set story, because all my others had been recently with that same publisher, World War II set books. And so I had the brilliant idea of a Paris book, because I don't think anyone has ever written a setting that, World War II book set in Paris. I'm pretty sure I've never read one at all. So I decided to be the first and to write the Paris Housekeeper. And obviously we all know I'm kidding. So what does it set mine apart from all the millions that are out there, or gajillions, is that it's kind of this juxtaposition of the glamorous setting of the Hotel Ritz, the high roller, the money that was really flowing through Paris, versus the reality of wartime, where there was rationing, and there were dangerous liaisons, and there was resistance, and not necessarily organized resistance. So I take those two worlds and I meld them and blend them. It's kind of an upstairs, downstairs story, a glimpse into life of what German occupation really was at this time. It starts in the Hotel Ritz, so you get the glamorous upstairs entrance into that world, and then the downstairs, which is the chambermaids, and that's the Paris Housekeeper. And it's based on, there were real people that lived in the Ritz, so they show up. There were Jewish characters that were targeted in Paris, so they show up. And really, it's just 3 wonderful, unrelated women who find themselves in a scenario where they have to rely on each other in this unlikely bond. I have Camille, who is a Parisian, oh, she's not a Parisian, she's in Paris from Brittany, and she's there to make money, and she sends it home to her family. And basically her sister, they're trying to keep the secret that she's having some mental issues. And at this time, the Nazis were targeting the mentally ill and using them in a very well-known euthanasia program. And that was the program that they basically used and practiced on and then brought over to their Auschwitz and the gas chambers. And so I really wanted to highlight that, where that came from. And so that shows up in Camille and her story and her sister's story. Then you have Rachel, who's another Paris housekeeper. She's another chambermaid, and she's a Jewish girl from France. She's born in Paris. She is a French-born Jewish girl. Her family are fully assimilated. They think they are safe because their neighbors are good friends. Their neighbors are going to protect them. They don't go to the synagogue. They do not practice the Jewish faith. And they, like many of the Jews in Paris at the time, thought they were safe and that the French would actually protect them. And one of the things I wanted to highlight in the story was that of all the roundups and all of the arrests, most of those were spearheaded by not the Germans, but the French government. So that's where kind of Rachel comes in, and that's her highlighted. That's kind of her purpose in the story. And I take the direction of, she's an angry person who can't understand why people aren't standing for them other than Camille. The
And
third,
Renee, we're out of time.
okay.
But if anybody wants to hear the rest, which sounds so intriguing, they're going to have to go to novelnetwork.com and book a visit with Renee Ryan. Joni said she's reading this book now and really enjoying it. Denise said it's a great book with great character development. So we hope you will pick up a copy and schedule a visit with Renee. And we can't wait to see you at Superbook in February.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Amy Runyon. Amy is an author who writes to celebrate history's unsung heroines, who has been honored as a Historical Novel Society Editor's Choice Selection, a 3-time finalist for the Colorado Book Awards, and as a nominee for the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writer of the Year. Her impending new novel, coming out on February 13th, is The Memory of Lavender and Sage. What a beautiful thought. Is set in the lush hillsides of Provence, explores the life of a woman unmoored after the death of her father, who decides to seek out the truth regarding her mother's past, only to unveil shocking truths about her family. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So the first thing I have to say is that we have moved the publication date for The Memory of Lavender and Sage. It is now March 5th. So you have 3 extra weeks to wait, but I promise Tempesta's story is worth it. So, for those of you who know me, you probably know me from The School for German Brides or Daughters of the Night Sky. Those are my 2 most popular books. And they are, World War II fiction, just like everybody's been writing. And I wanted to diversify for a lot of reasons. And so this is my debut women's fiction. And it is contemporary women's fiction. But because I don't, the goal is obviously to expand my readership and not just, to alienate my historical fiction readers. There is a lush setting like we have in historical fiction and a sense of nostalgia and looking at the past to find out where we're going. That is sort of the hallmark of good historical fiction. So I think that those of you who know me and know my historical fiction will find a lot to love, even though there isn't going to be, the big historical drama that we have in some of my previous books. And let me tell you, because this is, the story of a woman finding herself, learning to love herself, and learning her gifts. And in the case of Tempesta, her gifts are the ability to influence people's emotions through her herbs. And she finds out that her mother had the gift to be able to imbue a garment of clothing with emotions that she wants the people to feel. So she's sad while she's sewing a blouse for somebody, for example, the person who wear it will be sad. But if she wants to send her daughter off to kindergarten, who's very timid and very worried about going off to kindergarten, she will imbue a little hairband with all the courage that she can muster so that her daughter will go forward and feel a sense of confidence that she might not otherwise feel. And so there's a tradition of these gifts that are passed down from mother to daughter in the Vielesco family. And it's, I think, really kind of a touching story about how Tempesta has to go back to her roots to find what her gifts are. She's always been the square peg in a round hole, especially after her mother dies. Her mother dies when Tempesta is only 13 years old. And she has to deal with her father's family that is very stodgy, very traditional, old money New England family. But her mother had been more of a free spirit from Provence. And so she goes back to Provence, buys a farmhouse sight unseen. And so there's a little bit of renovation drama for those of you who enjoy that. A little bit of Tuscan, under the Tuscan sun with the Bramesol vibe there. But she learns to love the village, and she learns about the plight of the village. And one of the things that I found challenging moving from historical fiction to contemporary fiction was, well, if the pace is dragging in a World War II novel, blow something up. It's very simple, right? Throw in a nice raid or something like that. Everything will be fine. But you can't do that in contemporary fiction that's set in Provence in 2023. So I had to think of what the external pressures were. And the truth of the matter is that village life in France is shrinking and dying because all the young kids are going off to, are we out of time?
We are
Oh,
out of time, yes.
okay.
But
Anyhow, get the Memory of Lavender Sage. It's fun.
yes, and Dorothy Schwab must have had an advanced copy because she said she loved reading it. So
Yeah, she did.
congratulations. We
Yes.
can't wait for it. Next up is Karen Osborne. Karen always knew she possessed a talent and immense passion for writing. She released her first novel, Getting It Right, in 2017 to notable acclaim and received attention for her compelling writing style that aims to explore questions of race, privilege, and family loyalties. Her newest novel, True Grace, is a historical fiction story set in 1924 during the Harlem Renaissance, chronicling the powerful journey of an immigrant mixed race woman from the Congo, England, and Jamaica who fights for her family's survival. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the introduction. And hi, everybody. I'm glad that you're here. Uh, I am the author of 4 novels. And I write in, I was so interested to hear the comment that, I don't want to disappoint my historical fiction readers because I don't write in any one genre. I switch up. So I have a murder mystery. I have 2 contemporary family suspense novels. And now this is my first historical fiction. But the common thread is I write about flawed, relatable women who face monumental odds and must dig deep to overcome and survive. And my stories don't end in like neat little tied bows, but the reader can see the road ahead and know the possibility of happiness is definitely there. So True Grace, she starts, I want to read the first lines. The first time my husband died, I felt fear, shame, and guilt. The second time he died, this is a story inspired by my paternal grandmother, and it's a story of love and courage and sacrifice and resilience, grit, hope, and yes, grace. It's set in, as Susan mentioned, it's set in 1924 during the Harlem Renaissance, which I don't know if you know that period, but it was a time when jazz musicians and writers and poets were just flourishing. One of the first female entrepreneurs, Madam Walker, started a business, a successful business in Harlem, and that lived through her daughter. And all of the freedom, however, of that wonderful period, the flappers were shedding their girdles and lifting their hams, and they smoked and they drank, but there were lots of places that wasn't that hadn't touched people. And so the main character, Grace, she is a mixed race woman, immigrant woman, inspired by my grandmother. She was born in the Congo, raised in England and Jamaica, and found herself a wife with 5 children living in Harlem. In the first chapter, the very first chapter, she is staggered by a devastating event. And now, with few skills, she must navigate the misogyny, the xenophobia, the racism of the courts, the banks, the child welfare system, bad actors as she struggles to hold her family together. I was fortunate to know my grandmother, so I heard her stories firsthand, but she wasn't always forthcoming. A lot of family secrets, I'm sure you can relate to that. I also have 5 books written about her father and 300 pages of her handwritten letters. But even with all that material, I still had to do tons of research and I had to make up a lot of stuff. I am grateful for the wonderful reviews and from readers and professional reviewers. Historical fiction writer Jill Cardy wrote, with its wicked fast plot and stunning heroine, True Grace snags and immerses readers in colorful 1920s Harlem of speakeasies, gangsters, and flappers, a propulsive family saga with vivid historical details. One of my favorite reviews was from Dawny Ruby from the Novels and Lattes book club. And she said, I was literally praying for grace at times during the story. And then I had to remind myself that it was fiction. I'm grateful you joined us at PitchFest. I hope you will give True Grace a read. Do let me know what you think. There are suggested discussion questions and topics on my webpage. I'm happy to participate in book clubs. And I also have a lovely slideshow of the research and scenes and things from the book that other clubs have found enjoyable.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Karen. And Janice read it and put in all caps. I loved all caps this book. And Debbie has a great story, and I just lost it on the scroll here. Who said, how cool is this? We connected with Karen through a Novel Network member who happened to be sitting next to Karen on an airplane and who shared all about Novel Network, and here we are. So books really do connect the world, and we're delighted that Karen is a Novel Network member. Welcome. Thank you, Karen. Next up, Robin Oliveira, who also is going to be a super book author, and we're excited to see her soon. She's a New York Times bestselling author of 4 novels, her first of which, My Name is Mary Setter. My sister tells me almost every day, I love this book so much, everyone in the world needs to read it. Her book was awarded the prestigious James Jones First Novel Fellowship and the 2011 Michael Shara Award for Excellence in Civil War Fiction, inspired by her work as a registered nurse specializing in critical care and bone marrow transplant. Her latest novel, A Wild Heavenly Place, set to be released on February 13th, is the story of 2 star-crossed lovers fittingly set against the backdrop of the birth of Seattle. We can't wait to hear more. Welcome, Robin.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. As Susan said, this is my 4th novel, A Wild and Heavenly Place. This is a continent-spanning epic love story that ranges from 19th century Scotland, where my ancestors are from, to the Pacific Northwest, which is my adopted home. This is an unapologetically romantic book. While writing this novel, I kept Judi Dench's quote as Queen Elizabeth from the movie Shakespeare in Love on a sticky note on the edge of my computer. And some of you might know it. And that quote is, can a play show us the very truth and nature of love? Speaking, of course, about the play Romeo and Juliet. And so that intention, that lofty quest of trying to show the truth and nature of love became my goal in writing this novel. There are 2 main characters. Samuel Fittis is a 17-year-old young man who cares for his 5-year-old sister in impoverished Glasgow after they have fled a notorious orphanage. Samuel possesses both native intelligence and dreams, but when we meet him at the beginning of the novel, he possesses neither the money nor the position to make any of those come true. In the deepest sense, Samuel is searching for home, home as place, home as belonging and as desire, as love and as family. My second main character, Haley McIntyre, is the daughter of a wealthy coal mining engineer who lives in Glasgow's upper crust, West End. And while Haley already possesses home, belonging, and family, all the things that Samuel wants, she is searching for something deeper for herself, something different from the society life that her mother leads and that she wants Haley to lead. Samuel and Haley's love story is sparked when Samuel saves Haley's younger brother from a runaway carriage. and everything changes in that instant for them. But in a second twist, they are torn apart. Haley's father loses everything, and the McIntyres voyage to 1879 Seattle as her father chases an opportunity to save his finances and their family. In Seattle, Haley faces isolation and poverty, and her family begins to fall apart. While back in Glasgow, Samuel is trying to make a place for himself in shipbuilding on the River Clyde, where the best ships in the world are built. But as circumstances close in on both of these characters, they face desperate choices, even as they cannot forget one another. So A Wild and Heavenly Place has a diverse and large cast of characters, from Scotland's riverbank shipbuilders and tenements to the very denizens of the true melting pot of Seattle, where Norwegians, Welsh, Scots, Black Americans, and Chinese forge a new life in a waterfront town that still hasn't figured itself out, but where shipbuilding and coal mining are the nascent industries. At the time of this novel, Seattle's only about 25 years old. As always in my novels, these characters and the events of the novel are rooted in history and historical accuracy. And one of the reasons that I write historical fiction is to illuminate forgotten history. In addition, all the places in this novel are very personal and connected to me because I am nothing if not a creature of place, as you can tell in the novel Place. The novel is full of plot twists and turns, explosions, bank failures, ocean voyages, the wilds of early Seattle, and that's just some of what occurs. A novel, of course, however, is never just what happens, but why what happens happens. At its heart, A Wild and Heavenly Place is a story of love and the grand gestures we make when we cannot live without someone. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. And I can attest to all of Robin's novels being amazing. Yeah, loved Wild and Heavy Place, loved My Name is Mary Sutter. Sounds fascinating. I lived in Scotland, so love novels with this setting. Yeah. All right, I'm just scrolling through some of the comments because I want to make sure. All right, I just wanted to acknowledge a few, but they've passed so far down in the scroll. But thank you all for your kind comments. You love PitchFest. You love these authors. I want to buy and read every one of these books. They're amazing. Some are new to me, but they're all wonderful. So thank you all for your kind comments and for coming today. And as I mentioned, Robin will be in San Diego on February 18th for Superbook. We can't wait to see you again. All right, next up, Amy Meyerson. Amy is the best-selling author of two critically acclaimed books, The Bookshop of Yesterdays and The Imperfects, that have been translated into 11 languages. Her third novel, The Love Scribe, releasing in paperback next week, follows a charming girl whose passion for writing romantic stories ends up miraculously manifesting in real life. And she was at Superbook last year to talk about the book when it was in hardcover. We can't wait to hear all about the paperback release and share your story with everybody else. Amy, welcome.
Thanks. I'm just pulling up. I realized, well, hi everyone. I realized that I have the hardcover copy because I'm still waiting for my paperbacks. It comes out in 2 weeks. So I thought I'd show you the cover on my phone if you can see it. It's really interesting the changes that they make between when the cover changes between paperback and hardcover. Yeah, I was at Superbook last year. It was super fun. I recommend to all of you if you can go. It's a great, you get to sit with writers, and it's just a great interaction between readers and writers and celebration of books. And on celebration of books, my book, The Love Scribe, is both a meditation, a magical meditation on love, and also a celebration of reading and writing. The really short pitch of the story, and this all happens in the first chapter, so I'm not giving anything away, is the main character, Alice. She meets with her friend, her best friend, Gabby, who is devastated after a breakup. And Alice wants to do something to get her friend out of this funk. So she uncharacteristically decides to write her a little metaphorical story. And as soon as Gabby reads it, she's at a coffee shop, she laughs. A man at the table next to her hears her laughing, is enchanted by it, and 3 weeks later, they're magically in love. So on a hunch, Gabby gives the book to her sister, who then finds love, and she gives it to a few of her friends, and suddenly Alice, the main character, is in demand as a love scribe because she has this reputation for writing these metaphorical stories that they have little lessons in them that help people figure out what's keeping them from finding the love they want in their life. And along the way, she gets summoned to the woods by this mysterious old woman who wants her to write her one last love story before she dies. But of course, the woman is not entirely as she seems. And Alice starts to realize that helping people fall in love and staying in love are two separate things. And so she's forced to confront whether these stories that she's writing are actually helping people, the people that she writes them for. So this book came about differently than my other novels, and I think actually really apt for the story itself. During the pandemic, I was working on a different book that required a lot of hands-on research, which I couldn't do. So I was talking to my editor, trying to figure out how I could shift gears and write something different. And she said, I think you should write a bookish love story. I had no idea what that meant. I was like, what is a bookish love story? So it took a little while to think about it. And kind of like Alice in my novel, I got hit with this idea. And I remembered this story that my friend told me about how there's maybe some of you have been to weddings that have had this, but at weddings now, you can hire a poet who will come and will write love poems for your guests on demand. And I just thought that was so charming. And the way that my brain works is like, well, what if instead of just writing poems or stories, what if they actually made people fall in love? So the story, that's sort of the launching off point. It's as much a celebration of books and writing as it is love. I guess I'll just end because I have my timer and see that I'm getting close to the end. I wrote this during the pandemic when I really needed an escape. And so it really is an escapist book. It's about all kinds of love, not just romantic love. But it's fun. Hopefully it's thought-provoking. There's some twists I can't talk about, so without spoiling it. So that's why I love to talk to book clubs who have already read the book, and you can get into all those questions you can't approach with people who haven't read it yet. So thanks.
Thank you, Amy. So if you want to find the juicy details, read the book and invite Amy to your book club. And just a reminder to people who joined us late that we are recording this session and we will upload it to our YouTube channel. If you haven't visited our YouTube channel, Adventures by the Book, please do and subscribe. It's free and you can see some of our past events. And then somebody asked about Superbook, which is February 18th. So for those of you who are in or near Southern California, or who are freezing cold in your part of the country and want to come to San Diego in February, please join us. It's 20 fabulous authors. It's an all-day event from 9 to 3. You get to sit with an author. We have panels. We have photo-taking ops. It's one of the most fun events we ever do, and everybody loves it. So we hope you can come. We planned it over President's Day weekend, so you could take a 3-day weekend, fly out to San Diego, hang out with your reading friends. Come join us, please. Thank you, Amy. Next up, we have Christina McMorris, who I see did join us. Hi, Christina. She is a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestselling author who won the Goodreads Choice Award for her best historical fiction. Her novel, Sold on a Monday, has sold well over 1 million copies. Her last release, The Ways We Hide, is an international bestseller as well and one of Target's top 5 books of 2022. But she is here to talk about her children's book, Ellie Mae Dreams Big, a delightful new children's book that features her award-winning sister's artwork and encourages young individuals to feel more motivated and awe-inspired about their bright future. What a lovely concept. And I hope to host her and her sister in San Diego sometime too. But welcome, Christina.
Thank you for the intro, and thank you for letting me sneak in late. I know Susan knows I'm on a deadline for my next historical novel, which has a few more words in the picture book, as we all know firsthand. So got a deadline in just a few weeks. So I'm kind of multitasking today, but I am excited to share a bit about the picture book because I think this might be my only pitch that I have had so far that the pitch is longer than the book. So here is, hopefully you can all see that there. There is Ellie Mae Dreams Big. You can see samples on my website as well. And in short, what the story is about, and I'll show you a bit of the artwork inside, so I have a few minutes here. In short, what the story is about is a little girl named Ellie Mae who has a horrible time making decisions, just like my kids were, and my sister is a 7-year-old. So we fully understand the torture of standing in front of the Chuck E. Cheese prizes counter. As parents understand that we spend an hour picking the one prize that breaks on the way home. So Ellie Mae is given a question at school. What do you want to be when you grow up? Come dressed as your favorite choice. Kind of the typical question. However, she can't decide because she has so many options that she wants to choose from, including things like an astronaut and a chef. But then she remembers the moon is made of cheese. So she's going to take a big slice out of it and make the best galactic grilled cheese sandwiches in the universe. So this gives you an example of what we're talking about. And she'll build a fly-through instead of a drive-through for the aliens to go through. And I'll show you a couple more options here. She wants to become not just, she wants to become not just a farmer, but a candy farmer, when we all love this. So you can actually grow your candy corns and your cotton candy. And then, of course, that creates terrible teeth like pirates. And so pirates, since they have terrible teeth, but they have gold, she's going to take the gold and become the best pirate dentist ever by taking their gold and end up fixing their cavities and make their rotten teeth go away. So it goes on and on from there. She keeps smashing up careers until she finally has to make the big decision that we hope will surprise the readers as much as her classmates. And other than that, I'll just mention that working with my sister was a joy. In case you're all wondering, are we still speaking? Yes. I like to say you can't always travel with your friends, right? You finish and go, I really liked you more before the trip. In this case, we actually still like each other and found out that we collaborate so well together. She was already an award-winning, amazing full-time picture book illustrator. So it was a natural fit for us. And thankfully, we got along great because we have a 2-book contract. Otherwise, the next book would be something we both be dreading. So other than that, there is an activity kit on my website. So if you have grandkids or kids or you're a teacher and have a classroom and want to encourage kids to think outside the box and use their imagination, there's all kinds of fun things for them to do, especially in the winter weather when we can't go outside as much. So I think that covers it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I was wondering if people were having questions about, doing a Novel Network book club visit for a children's book. And absolutely yes, because if you, like she said, if you're a teacher and want to Skype, or I guess we're Zooming now, not Skyping anymore, but Zoom with Christina and your classroom, or if you have grandchildren, neighbors, nieces, nephews, it's really a fun way. Or if you're an aspiring writer or illustrator and want to talk to her and her sister about just the writing process and illustration process and publication, that's great. Or of course, you can talk to her about any of her fabulous historical fiction novels. So thank you, Christina, for that. We're excited to see you whenever we get to see you next. And thanks to Jane Sims, who made a comment in the chat box. She went to Superbook 2 years ago. Well worth the airfare from El Paso, Texas. Can't make it this year, but I really loved it. And thanks for providing Zoom events like this one. You are very welcome, Jane. Thanks, Christina. Up next is Beth Ann Matthews, who was just in San Diego a couple of weeks ago doing a bunch of events. She's a marine biologist, professor, and author who became inspired to write by her sailing adventures with her husband. Her award-winning memoir and debut book, Deep Waters, focuses on her family's struggles to survive and move beyond her husband's sudden, unusual stroke, with powerful writing that discusses the themes of love, loss, and Alaskan adventure. Welcome back, Beth.
Thank you, Susan. It is a pleasure to be here. My book opens up in Juneau, Alaska, when our son was 9, and where my husband Jim and I had lived for 18 years. The full title is Deep Waters, a memoir of loss, Alaska adventure, and love rekindled. At that time, I was a professor at the University of Alaska Southeast. I taught animal behavior and marine mammal biology and studied sea lions, seals, and harbor porpoises, mainly in Glacier Bay National Park. I loved the research. Camping next to a tidewater glacier with my students was fantastic. My husband, Jim, is a marine ecologist who did his graduate research on walruses in the middle of the Bering Sea, a fit outdoorsman. He liked to hunt, hike, and ride his bike, even in the winter. We're a very close-knit family, but as the story unfolds, my husband and I have been under the strains of parenting and 2 careers. He's not happy with how much I work. Our 42-foot sailboat, which we'd owned for 16 years and lived on for 7 before Glenn was born, is an integral part of our lives. On a regular Tuesday morning, I woke thinking of all I needed to do at work. Jim brought me coffee in bed, then left to repair a skylight. When I heard harsh coughing, I rushed out to the living room to find my healthy husband staggering up the stairs. It turns out he had a very rare type of stroke caused by the repetitive bending of his neck while doing the repair. In the scene I'm going to read, it's been 2 months since the stroke. I've taken on more work to support the family. Jim's learned how to walk with hiking poles, but he can't yet drive. He takes the bus to buy our groceries and cooks dinner every night. Still recovering, he convinces me our family needs a weekend trip on the boat where we connect best. Eventually, I agree as long as we have perfect weather. We spend a magical day in a remote cove, hiking and fishing, surrounded by spruce and hemlock. In the morning, Jim announces he's going to snorkel for crab. Even though I think it's too soon, I help him tug on his wetsuit. And this next section is what I'll be reading from the book. A research diver, he'd done the scissor kick entry many times. Standing at the stern, I can still see him there, mid-air, strong legs and a wide stride. He dropped and splashed in. Normally, right after the closing kick, the diver pops back up. Seconds ticked off as I stared at the ocean. Mirage-like through teal water, I saw him kicking, but he was on his side, head underwater, swimming parallel to the surface. His flippers pulsed the sea to a froth, steering him away from the boat. He hadn't taken a breath. "Jim," I called out, confused. He lurched sideways, breaking free. It was as if a demon had speared him and was dragging his body away from us, inches below the surface. His face flashed into view, and I glimpsed the fear. Our son appeared. "What's going on?" he asked, alarmed. Then, by chance, it seemed Jim's kicking curved him back toward the stern. All I could think was, get his head out of the water. Damn, I'm not wearing a life jacket. He'll pull me under. No time. I scrambled down the ladder, gripping the top rung, knees bent, feet on the bottom step. I leaned out. "Get him," Glenn shouted. I'd like to be clear that Deep Waters is not a stroke recovery book, although that does happen. It's also not purely a sailing adventure memoir, but readers do get to experience Southeast Alaska's magnificent wilderness and wildlife, as well as life-threatening situations at sea. Instead, Deep Waters is an intimate memoir about relationship resilience and how a crisis pushed me to reevaluate what's most important and give up security for a more connected, fulfilling life. I'll end with a brief quote by Lao Tzu. "Being deeply loved by someone gives you strength. Loving someone deeply gives you courage."
Thank you, Beth. And it is a gripping story, true story. You'll have to pick it up and read what happens. Thank you, Beth. Next up is Judith Lindberg, is an author, a poet, a photographer, and founder of the Writers Circle, which aims to teach aspiring and accomplished writers of all ages. Her new novel, Akmarl, comes on May 7th. It's about a nomad woman warrior of the Central Asian steppes in the 5th century BCE that was inspired by legends of Amazonian women warriors told by the ancient Greek historian Herodotus. Can't wait to hear more, Judith. Welcome.
Thank you. And I'm very excited to be here to tell you about Akmarl. This story is a lot more ancient than most of what we've been talking about tonight. And I want you to just take your imagination back all the way to the time before the Silk Road had a name, when nomads roamed the ancient Asian steppes and women fought side by side as equals with men. In Akmarl, you're going to meet one of these extraordinary women warriors. Akmarl is a fighter of the Soramatai, a nomad band descended from the Amazon women who fought in the Trojan War. As a child, she's marked for destiny by a mysterious shamanist. But when another tribe attacks, both her parents are killed. In time, she is pledged to the war god, as all the people in her tribe are. Both men and women in this culture, vulnerable and on the open, uncertain steppes, are trained in defense and battle skills. She becomes an expert horsewoman and archer, a rival to Erzon, a young man of the tribe who envies her as much as he desires her. But the true enemy of this story are the Scythians. The Scythians are a tribe from the far west who were allies long ago, but betrayed them. And now they are coming again. A rogue band attacks their tribe, and the Akmarel's people capture one of them. And this is how she meets Timur, whose penetrating blue eyes and steadfast resolve draw her in and lead her toward her destiny. Now, Akmarel is inspired by legends of the Amazons, but this is not a Wonder Woman superhero action adventure kind of story. There is quite a bit of battle, so be prepared for that. But Akmarel is actually rooted in modern archaeology that proves these nomad women warriors were real. In researching my book, I discovered fascinating burials of women who had clearly died of battle wounds and were laid to rest with spears, arrowheads, daggers, and swords, all the weapons of war. Unlike the rumors spread by the Greeks that the Amazons lived without men, the burials prove that, in fact, these women were leaders and priestesses, but also mothers and wives who chose their own paths and their own partners, but only after they had killed an enemy in battle. This is a rare moment in history when women have their own agency and can choose how they live their lives. They no longer have to be the outlier who goes against society, but they can own their own direction and their own fate. Akmarel might seem like obscure his ancient history and unrelated to modern life, but in fact, it is inspired by something that happened when my children were young. I have two boys, now pretty grown, but they, when they were little, I wanted them to have gender neutral toys and no weapons in the house. And their favorite games were to play battle in the backyard with Nerf guns and swords. And I had to kind of find a way to cope with this undeniable reality. So I turned that dilemma inward and I asked myself, well, what would a woman like me fight and die for? And the answer was right outside my window in the backyard. I would fight to protect my family. Akmarel delves deep into questions of female power, motherhood, and the kind of sacrifices we make to protect those we love. These kind of questions are as relevant today as they were in ancient times. So if you loved Circe by Madeline Miller, or A Thousand Ships by Natalie Haynes, or Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel, I have the feeling you're going to fall in love with Akmarel. And if you invite me to join you at your book club, I would be so excited to show you the fascinating artifacts and history and burials that inspired this book and informed the characters and the world, and how I wove it all into fiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. And it's not a time period written about very often, so we're excited that you've delved into it. Next up, Robert Kerbeck from Hawaii. Yes, I'm coming, Robert, don't you worry. He's an award-winning actor and author whose essays and short stories have been featured in numerous magazines and literary journals. His short story, Reconnected, was adapted into an award-winning film and has appeared at film festivals worldwide. He also fought one of the worst fires in California history personally to save his home, which was chronicled in his debut book, Malibu Burning. Robert's newest memoir, Ruse, is a thrilling look into the world of corporate espionage and his career as a secret spy. It's all true and unbelievable. Tell us all about it, Robert. Welcome.
Thank you, Susan. And I apologize. I had to pop off a couple of times. I'm in Hawaii, but I'm actually flying home tomorrow because my mother is in the hospital. So I'm going to do my best to get through this. But yeah, my book is the story of how a wannabe actor became a corporate spy. It's a true story. If you like, Catch Me If You Can. Frank Abagnale gave me the blurb for the cover, and I come from a car sales family. Yes, I'm the son of a car salesman, and my great grandfather sold horse carriages before automobiles were invented. My grandfather took over that dealership. My father took over that dealership, and I was supposed to take over that dealership. But when I was in college, I fell in love with acting. I moved to New York from Philadelphia. And of course, we all know actors need survival jobs. Who stumbles into a career in corporate espionage? But that's what happened to me. And I think the thing about Ruse that I think is fun is it's kind of two books because I was a working actor. So, there's scenes where I'm drinking beers with Paul Newman. I'm getting hit on by Kevin Spacey. I'm dancing with O.J. Simpson. Yoko Ono is hanging up on me. And yet at the same time, I'm having all of these interactions as a working actor. I'm also going deeper and deeper into the world of corporate espionage. When I started doing this job, of course, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And in the beginning, we were getting $8 an hour, and we were just, calling corporations and trying to get secrets and trying to get information. And as time went on, we went deeper and deeper using our acting training, our voices. We would create characters. We would create personas. This is Gerhard calling from the office in Frankfurt, Germany. We have the European Union regulators here, and we need some information from the States, right? Everybody's kind of smiling, laughing. And so you would call or you would go in person and you would pretend you were this other individual, and people, of course, would believe it. And then they would tell you things that they should never in a million years tell you, secrets about corporations and their products and their pricing. And of course, we would then sell this information to that company's top rivals. And the world of corporate espionage is extremely lucrative. I started at $8 an hour. By the end, I was making $2 million a year. And I'm excited to say that Ruse will be a streaming series in 2025. It got sold to Archer Gray. Their show currently on air is Amazon's Dead Ringers with Rachel Weisz. She's a wonderful actress. So I'm really excited about that. And I appreciate the support. Susan's been a believer from the beginning in this crazy, crazy story. I hope you'll read it. I think we've noticed I'm the only dude here. Thank you for having me. And it's a great book for guys, but it's a great book for anyone. So I hope you give it a shot. It's on Audible. I narrate the audio book, which is kind of fun too, because you get to hear all my crazy accents.
Yeah, and I can attest as it's not just for men. I read it and loved it, and his story is remarkable, and he's really a lovely person. So you'll enjoy meeting him if you schedule a book club visit with him, but do pick up his book and learn more about the world of corporate espionage. Who knew? All right, next up, we have Susanna Kennedy. She is a Berkeley and Oxford educated anthropologist who has traveled extensively throughout her life, having lived in Egypt for 2 years, raising her 3 children in a thatched roof farmhouse in the German countryside until 2017, when she and her family moved back to California following the sudden suicide of her mother. Susanna's debut memoir, Reading Jane, explores the hidden diaries that her mother left behind before her passing, while also serving as a vivid study of narratives. We're sorry for your loss, Susanna, but we look forward to hearing your story. Welcome.
Hi, hello. Greetings, everyone. This is so exciting to see so many of you from all over the country. So many book lovers and so many amazing writers, right? This is my book. I love the cover, the beautiful blue, the iconic scene of a mother and daughter. And this is crazy, but it also feels good. My book is different from many of those you just heard about. Reading Jane is a memoir written after I started reading the diaries my mother secretly left to me, her only child, after her suicide 9 years ago. Imagine this scene. After all the relatives had gathered and gone away again, after I had gotten over the first shock, after we had scattered her ashes at sea, I was going through her apartment with a group of women friends. We cleansed it with sage. We sprayed lavender in all the corners. We did everything we could think of to heal that space, to create a place where I could be comfortable again. We put away her files. We boxed up her clothes. We went through her desk. There was a wooden trunk in the living room, a beautiful, ornate, dark wooden trunk that had always held my intricately stitched baby clothes, and most memorably, an ancient long Catholic christening gown wrapped in fragile tissue paper that had been worn by my grandfather as a baby. Imagine that time frame stretching back to 1907. As I opened the trunk, these are the things I was expecting to find. Instead, there were 45 years of her diaries lined up like little soldiers, their years written on their spines. Oh my gosh, I was so shocked. I lay back on the carpet and I couldn't speak. The mothball smell wafted into my nose like poison. What were they doing here? What was she trying to tell me? For 3 years, I tried to block it all out. My friends packed the diaries into boxes in the basement. I went on with my life. But there was always this question, much as there always is with a suicide. Why? Were there secrets? Would I find another side to my mother that might explain why she didn't come to my wedding? Why our adult life was full of estrangements? Why she had seemed to live a kind of double life as she got older, a life of symphonies and swimming and yoga, and then ranting about how people should all die at 75. It felt like a weird mystery. And yet she was my beloved mother, the woman who shaped me. Some people hear about the themes of reading Jane and say, whoa, heavy. And yes, they are heavy in the way life is heavy. We all have hurdles and sorrows and challenges. It's about the way we overcome them. I heard from so many readers on my book tour how inspiring they found the book for their own lives, how optimistic it felt, despite the hard themes. I couldn't put it down, many said. That's why I love memoir, actually. I learned so much by reading the journeys of others. I want to know what it feels like to go through something, even if the details are different from my own life. Even better when there's a juicy, complex psychological arc. Reading Jane will take you on an incredible journey through motherhood and the passing down of certain behaviors through generations, of family cultures, and how we can change those cultures into something good for our children. I bet you'll love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. And how many of us wouldn't give anything to have diaries from our parents? I mean, what a gift. I'm
Well,
sure.
it's a gift or not a gift. You
I
have to
was going to say
read
a
the
gift
book
or
to
a
see.
curse, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But thank you for joining us.
Thank
All
you
right,
for
next
having
up,
me.
we have Catherine Howe, who was just recently in San Diego in December. She is a New York Times bestselling author who specializes in historical novels, which she uses to query the ideas about contingent nature of reality and belief. She is the author of several novels for adults and young adults, including the blockbuster bestseller, The Physic Book of Deliverance Dane, and the #1 New York Times bestselling books, Vanderbilt and Astor, which she co-wrote with Anderson Cooper. Her latest novel, A True Account, is a daring first-hand account of one young woman's unbelievable adventure as one of the most terrifying sea rovers of all time. Catherine, welcome.
Thank you so much. I just had to unmute myself. Hello, I'm so delighted to be here with you all, and I will be very, very brief. Technically, today I'm pitching you a book I cannot show you. It is called The Penguin Book of Pirates, and it is a primary source reader that's coming from Penguin Classics on April 30th. It's a collection of original documents about piracy from the 1500s all the way up into the 19th century. And it came about because I did so much primary source research for A True Account, Hannah Masuri's Sojourn Amongst the Pirates, written by herself. A True Account came out in November. It's available now. And there's a wonderful book club guide that Macmillan has put together. And it opens in Boston in 1726 when a girl named Hannah Masuri, who has been bound out to service at a waterfront tavern called Ship Tavern, is a real place, witnesses the hanging of a pirate named William Fly in June of 1726 in Boston. And William Fly was a real person. He was really hanged as a pirate in 1726. And when he was hanged, his hanging was presided over by Cotton Mather, who was the same guy who presided over the Salem witch trials. So Hannah watches William Fly be hanged, and the first time that she sees this happen, she realizes that she's starting to get a taste for what adventure could really be like in her life. The reason that I wanted William Fly to be the catalyst for Hannah's adventure was because when William Fly mounts the scaffold, he's expected to apologize and make himself humble in front of everyone who's watching his hanging. But instead, he does two things that I think are just amazing. First, he mounts the scaffold, he takes one look at the noose, says to the hangman, "Don't you know your trade?" unties the noose, and then reties it again and puts it around his own neck because, of course, he was a sailor, so he was very good at knots. And the second thing that he said was that when he was given an opportunity to confess his sins in front of the entire watching populace, he's meant to bow before authority. Instead, he says as his final words, "Masters of vessels, do it well by your men, lest they be put upon doing as I have done," which I think is one of the most incredible things I've ever come across in a primary source. So William Fly's story is only one of many that you'll find in the Penguin Book of Pirates. In the Penguin Book of Pirates, you'll find the backstory behind the Dread Pirate Roberts from The Princess Bride. You'll find the backstory for Speedy Bonnet if you've been watching Our Flag Means Death on HBO. You'll find pirates you've heard of, like Blackbeard, and pirates you maybe have never heard of, like Anne Bonny and Mary Read, who both disguised themselves as men and went pirating off the coast of Jamaica in the 17 teens. So the Penguin Book of Pirates, which is coming out on April 30th, is as if you said, "Catherine, I want you to show me all the most incredible, amazing primary sources that you read while you were researching a true account, and I want you to explain to me what makes them so incredible." And that's what it is. So that's coming out in the spring, and it's kind of a companion volume to A True Account, Hannah Mathuri's Sojourn Amongst the Pirates, written by herself, which is available now. Thank you so much. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Catherine. And if you schedule a visit with her, you get to hear all the juicy behind the scenes stuffs and the story behind it. It's fascinating. I tell you, she was here in San Diego in December, and the story is just remarkable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next is Nicola Harrison, who has written 3 historical fiction novels, with her newest, Hotel Laguna, set to release in paperback this June. And we did go to Hotel Laguna with a Adventure by the Book trip, and we went to the sorry, I've been up since I've been up since 3 a.m. So my mind's a little, but we had an amazing trip to Laguna Beach with her to talk about her book. Prior to writing novels, she worked as a fashion journalist in New York City. Her most recent novel, as I mentioned, Hotel Laguna, centers around a woman's life-changing decision to move to California in 1942 to aid in the war effort, only to suddenly feel displaced when the war ends and women are forced more back into traditional roles. Welcome back, Nicola.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here. This is my novel, Hotel Laguna. And like you said, Susan, this book takes place set in 1946. And it tells the story of a young woman, Hazel Francis, who has left her home in Wichita, Kansas, and is heading to Los Angeles, California, to work at Douglas Aircraft as one of the Rosie the Riveters during World War II. She loves the work. She's thriving in the position. She's really enjoying it. And then the war is over. The men come back and take their jobs back. And the ladies are told, "Thanks very much, ladies, but now you can go back to being housewives and mothers." Well, Hazel Francis is not a mother and she's not a housewife, and she doesn't really have a home to go back to. So on a whim, she ends up in Laguna Beach, and kind of out of desperation, she takes a job as an artist and a model for Hanson Radcliffe, who's a cantankerous old artist in the artist community of Laguna Beach. And he's haunted by a decades-old scandal from his past. And the scandal involves a Hollywood star. So Hazel gets very involved in the art community down in Laguna Beach, specifically the Pageant of the Masters, which is a festival that's still going on today that we went to, Susan. But Hazel becomes kind of obsessed with finding out the mystery behind her boss's scandal. She becomes friendly with a very handsome war veteran and the bartender at the iconic Hotel Laguna, Jimmy, and she tries to enlist him to help her figure out this mystery about her boss. But ultimately, this is a story of love and perseverance and friendship and determination and the realization that one small decision can change the course of your life in the most unexpected way. So the first time I started thinking about this novel was in the spring of 2020. The height of COVID, I was on lockdown, and usually at this stage in the game of starting to think about a novel, I would want to travel to the place that I want to write about and do some research and really dig in. But of course, I couldn't do that. So I started thinking, well, where would I like my imagination to live for the next year and a half or 2 years or however long it takes to write this next novel? And I kept coming back to the idea of Laguna Beach. I lived in Laguna Beach, California, right after college. It was the first time I had my own shoebox of an apartment all by myself, and I had my first salaried job. So I had my first taste of independence living there. But also, both of my parents are artists, and they both exhibited in the art galleries and festivals in Laguna Beach. So I had this behind the scenes knowledge of the art community and some of their quirky artist friends, and I thought that would be a good place to set a book. So once I had settled on the place and the time period of the 1940s, I became really fascinated with these women who worked as Rosie the Riveters and on the home front, helping build airplanes, and they worked in shipyards and ammunition plants to really help win the war. And I was talking to my husband about this one night, and he told me, he's like, oh yeah, my grandma Ruth was a Rosie the Riveter. And I didn't know this before, so I immediately got on the phone with my mother-in-law and started questioning her for as many stories as she could remember about her life at that time. So that was where the seed of my protagonist, Hazel Francis, was planted, and that's where the story really took off from there. So I think this, if you have an interest in the quirky lives of artists, the beautiful bohemian beachy town of Laguna Beach, or the role that women played on the home front in World War II, or if you're just looking for a historical beach read with a dash of romance, then I think that Hotel Laguna will be for you. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you, Nicola. And I know it's getting late. We only have 4 authors left. I appreciate you guys staying to the very end, because our authors at the end, or in this case, the beginning of the alphabet, want you to stick around for them, and I hope you will. Next up, Michelle Cox is the author of the multiple award-winning Henrietta and Inspector Howard series, as well as the novel Notes of Local Lore, a weekly blog dedicated to Chicago's forgotten residents. Her newest novel, The Fallen Woman's Daughter, releases soon on March 5th and centers around the hardships of 2 young girls in the 1930s after they are forcefully separated from their mother. Welcome back, Michelle. And you probably have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that intro, Susan. I am coming to you from an Airbnb in Dubuque, Iowa, so please excuse the background and the bad lighting. But I am excited to be here tonight to talk about The Fallen Woman's Daughter. As Susan was saying, it comes out in March. It's my historical women's fiction debut. And I think what's really fascinating about this book is that it, like a lot of these books tonight, I guess, this was based on a true story. So I heard this story in a nursing home in the early 1990s. It's a fascinating tale. There's a lot going on in here. Almost everything that happens in this book really did happen. So it starts out as a dual timeline story. The first storyline is the 1930s, and we have 2 little girls, Nora, who's 8, and Patsy, who is 4, are taken from their mother in the middle of the night from their Chicago apartment and driven to the Park Ridge School for school for girls from broken families. So they have no idea why they're there. They don't even know where they are exactly. They're put into a house with a very cruel house matron, and they have to very quickly learn to navigate this scary place. And every week they expect their mother to show up and rescue them. Nora writes letters to her mother every week that go unanswered. So that's one storyline. Then we go back in time to the 20s to Gertie Gustafsson, who is a young woman from a very large Swedish immigrant family living in the coal mining towns of southern Iowa. And they're very poor. There's only one radio in town that belongs to their neighbor, and Gertie sneaks over to listen to the radio, and she very quickly begins to fall in love with Westerns, which is the only thing the neighbor will play. And she has a very romanticized idea of the world and longs to travel and have adventures. And so when a traveling carnival comes through town, she becomes enamored of the barker Lorenzo, who eventually convinces her to run away with him. So we go between the two storylines. Eventually, the reader realizes that the two little girls are Gertie's daughters, and the story progresses through the 30s, 40s, 50s, and on into the 60s. So it's really a big family saga. Lots of things happen. It's a story between mothers and daughters, because eventually Gertie does track down her girls, and she's expecting a very warm welcome. But Nora at this point is very bitter because she's grown to love the home. She doesn't really want to leave there. That's her new family. She's met all of these people. Lots of things are going on there. So these three women have to learn to navigate their new reality. It's a story. It's kind of a tearjerker, but it's a story of redemption and forgiveness. There's a lot of hope. It ends, I think, on a good note. Nora eventually discovers a secret about Gertie that explains a lot of her behavior of the past, and she eventually has to figure out what to do with that information. So, like I said, I hope I've done the story justice. I think it's a great book. I'd love to talk to your book club about it. There's lots more information I could share. So thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Next up is Jeffrey Blunt, and he is joining us via video because he unfortunately had something that came up last minute. Jeffrey Blunt is the award-winning author of 4 novels and an Emmy award-winning TV director. During a 34-year career at NBC News, Jeffrey directed a decade of Meet the Press, The Today Show, and NBC Nightly News. His novel, The Emancipation of Evan Walls, was the winner of the prestigious 2020 National Indie Excellence Award for African American Fiction. His newest book, Mr. Jimmy from Around the Way, is a story about failure, self-discovery, empowerment, and redemption. And he will be back to Superbook in February. You can meet him in person. So let's cue up Jeffrey's video, please.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for having me, and Debbie and everybody at Adventures by the Book. And also to my fellow authors, hello. I'm sorry I'm not there to join you live. I am out on book tour right now, introducing the world to my latest novel, Mr. Jimmy from Around the Way. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity here to talk to people about what I think is a wonderful novel. Mr. Jimmy from Around the Way, I refer to as my pandemic baby because that's when it started. You know, we had all circled the wagons and were taking care of ourselves and trying to make the best of a very tough situation. And one of the things I was doing was having a lot of wonderful conversations with people I love. And I ended up having a conversation with my dad about a time when I was 7 years old, and he and my mom had worked behind the scenes to put me in a position that I would be picked by a teacher to help another kid in need at school. And the reason they did this, my dad told me, was because they wanted me at that point to know that I was in the world for something more than just myself. I was in the world also to recognize when my fellow human being was in need and that I should be ready to lend a helping hand. And so that was my parents teaching me kindness. And the purpose of this book, which I took from that conversation, is kindness to our fellow human being. And I'm calling Mr. Jimmy an example of the activism of kindness. Mr. Jimmy is a billionaire, an African-American billionaire, which is rare. And we don't really like billionaires these days, or it seems, in our country. But Mr. Jimmy is different. He is beloved in part because of his philanthropy. He's really, takes part of his community. He loves being part of people's lives and helping to make a difference in their lives. He and his wife have also had a most beautiful marriage and love affair, and a public one. People have envied that. Well, Mr. Jimmy at some point makes a really poor decision. And Mr. Jimmy suffers a severe fall from grace. The public response is devastating to him. And he has fractured his family. He's fractured his reputation. And you know what we do when we decide when we're in trouble, and particularly if our parents are punishing us for something, or or upset with us, what do? We run to our bedrooms as children. We slam the door, we get on our bed and we cuddle up with our blankets, whatever, because that's our safe space. Well, Mr. Jimmy was raised in the rural South. And he's living in Washington, D.C. when he has his fall from grace. And he decides to go back to a place of comfort, which is the rural South. And he finds that he is next door. When he buys his house, he moves in next door to a neighborhood in abject poverty. He doesn't want to have anything to do with these people because he's got his own trouble. He's trying to find his path to redemption. But he gets drawn into this community. And as he's drawn into the community, he becomes friends, and he starts to participate and start to want to help. His philanthropic nature comes out. Then there is a horrible discovery. And Mr. Jimmy's job is to help his community survive and to move forward. At the same time, he's trying to find redemption for himself. So it's a wonderful story about love, redemption, failure, and there's a lot of joy and there's a lot of hope. There's also a lot of learning about people who exist in our country in ways we don't think they do. So thank you for this opportunity. I hope you'll go out and buy the book. And I hope that you will, after you read it, will want to go out and do something for your fellow human being. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for joining us by video. Again, he'll be in San Diego on February 18th for Superbook if you want to meet him in person. And I guarantee you won't regret it. All right, 2 authors left, and then we'll do our giveaway and call it a night. But certainly not last or least is Kara Black, is the New York Times and USA Today best-selling author and award-winning author of 20 books in the private investigator Amy LeDuc series with more than 400,000 books in print, and 2 World War II set novels featuring American markswoman Kate Reese. Her newest novel, Murder at La Villette, is releasing in March and is the thrilling 21st installment of the Amy LeDuc series, in which LeDuc is framed for the murder of her daughter's father. Welcome, Kara.
Thank you, Susan. Hi, everyone. Hi, Susan and Debbie. Thank you, everyone. And here is, I'm going to ghost in and out, Murder at La Villette. It just came and I just did a unboxing. I'm very excited. I'm really thrilled to be here. Think Audrey Hepburn in the 21st century in Paris, and it's an updated version. She's a fashionista in black leather on the run, and she happens to be Amy LeDuc, who's a private eye in Paris. Amy LeDuc in this current story is a mother of a 3-year-old, and she's having issues with her ex, who is the biological father, who wants them all to move to Brittany. Well, Amy is no way going to go to Brittany because she's a real Parisian. I mean, how can you find a cafe in a farm field, right? She likes to go to the corner, get her espresso, hop on her scooter and go to work. Well, Amy is doing work in the 19th arrondissement of Paris, and she's doing work undercover in a startup because she does computer security. But when she finds her ex down by the canal, and she is framed for his murder, she has to go on the run. So essentially, this is a cat and mouse story set in Paris. Amy has to prove, and find a guilty person. And it's up in the 19th arrondissement, which is over there. Paris is like a snail shell, right? Comes out from the middle at Notre Dame, and there's 20 arrondissements. Well, Amy is up here, which is more of a lesser known area of Paris. It's sort of off the beaten track. And it really spoke to me because it's a place that I got lost in once, and I heard stories. And I know stories like mine and many of the authors today have spoken about that come from every book. We have particular places that are characters in the book. And I really had to explore and discover the 19th arrondissement because characters, I believe one of the authors said, they do not live in a vacuum. And great mysteries, which this is one, can touch on social issues when they stem from injustice, take us into a milieu or a world that we want to know about. And they're relevant for today because we can explore in safety and go somewhere, escape, and learn something. And I really feel that Amy Leduc in these 21 books has grown as a person, and we see her and how she deals with it. It also deals with family. She's a mother, she has a godfather, and a lot of things come up. And I think one of the things that are very difficult in a mystery, because there is sort of a genre aspect to it, is to have your character grow and develop. And in a long series with a wide arc, how do you do that? Because the genre itself is about a secret, a mystery. People read it to find out. And I love to read them myself. So I really wanted to explore, especially in this book, family, and family in the 19th arrondissement, which is very different. It's a place where you can still, as of now, afford to raise a family, and what that means, and who are the immigrants, and the history of this area. And in doing my research at the archives and hanging out with my friends in the police, I got to explore a whole other strata that I didn't know anything about. And I think if that can happen, I can hopefully bring that to life. And I really don't want to take any more time because I know Sarah's waiting. And anyway, I would love, think Killing Eve if you want to think of some kind of comparison, but quite different. And I love to come to book clubs. Please contact me. And I hope that you will, I can't hold it. Murder on March 5, Murder at La Villette. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. And for those who are in the Bay Area, in Sonoma, in wine country, Kara will be appearing as part of our Reading Between the Vines series once a month. We'll be featuring an author up there. And so check out our website to find out which day Kara is going to be there, and you can go drink wine and talk about her book with her there. And last but certainly not least is Sarah Ackerman, the USA Today bestselling author who writes books about love and life and all of their messy and beautiful imperfections. She believes that the world is in need of uplifting and heartwarming stories. She was born and raised in Hawaii, studied journalism, and later earned a graduate degree in psychology and Chinese medicine. Her newest novel, The Uncharted Flight of Olivia West, coming soon, was inspired by a real-life female aviator who defies the odds to embark on a daring air race across the Pacific. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for staying till the end. So let's talk about my wild ride of a novel. A few years back, I was ready to branch out of World War II, and I was kind of stuck for ideas. So I asked a neighbor, Ilona, and she brought over this giant book called Saga of the Sandwich Isles, which has just a bunch of Hawaii history to it. And when I came upon a page in this book about the Dole Air Race, right away, I kind of had that tickle of knowing that that you get as an author that this would just make an incredible story. And for those of you who don't know, the Dole Air Race in 1927, right after Charles Lindbergh made his famous Atlantic crossing, James Dole, who is a pineapple magnate and a big landowner in Hawaii, he put up a huge monetary prize to be the first to fly to Hawaii from California. And that's 2,400 miles of open ocean. And the whole country became obsessed about this race. It was a huge deal. And about a couple months later, 8 planes ended up taking off from Oakland's Bay Farm Island, but tragically, not all of them made it to Hawaii. In the 20s, airplanes at that point were just very simple contraptions, wooden frames, and covered in a canvas that was often painted with what they called aircraft dope, which is like a lacquer that hardens and weatherproofs it. And after reading about it, I just thought, oh my gosh, I never would want to get into one of these things. But they did, and some of them made it across the Pacific. And another thing that caught my interest was the navigation, because you had to reach a tiny island in this vast Pacific. And, you know, we didn't have GPS. It was just based on what they held in their heads. So this serendipitously, I was looking through my dad's storage room, and I came upon an old book published in 1926. And it was called American Practical Navigation, full of charts, complex tables. And that book really helped me to kind of write my book. And because we have Olivia West, who she's a navigator before she's a pilot. So as far as females in the book or in the race, there was only one woman in the race, and her name was Mildred Doran, but she was not a pilot or a navigator. She was a passenger. There is plenty of women, though, at that time who were, capable pilots. And I like to think that had they been given the opportunity, they would have made it. So in a kind of what if thinking, Olivia West was born. I like to think that this is a perfect book to help you escape the cold of winter, with a spirit of adventure and tropical vibes. And it's a fun book. So I hope that you would be interested in riding shotgun with Olivia West.
Thank you, Sarah. Great way to finish up. And we're going to make this quick because I know everybody's tired. First of all, I want to thank all of our authors so that they can go and do what they need to do because they've been hanging out with us. We appreciate every one of you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you to our behind the scenes staff, Debbie, Riley, Sarah, Amber. I don't know if you're there, but they've been posting all the links for everybody on the side, and they are going to be logging. If all three of you could please log the winners' names really quickly, because I'm going to call them quickly so we can get this over. And thanks especially to our readers, all of you who joined. There were over 200 that signed up for this event. But you do have to stay to the end to win. And so I am now going to call the winners. And if you win a book, it is your responsibility to email us. You're going to email Debbie at novelnetwork.com. Debbie, can you type that in the chat box? And when we call your name, you're going to email her and say, I'd like to collect my book and send your mailing address because I'm going to go through it really fast and I don't want to mess anything up. So we're going to start calling names in just a moment. And we will start with Diane Pavasic. Congratulations, Diane. All right. Next up, next winner is Rocky Rockhill. Congratulations, Rocky. Next winner is Kelly Britt. Congratulations, Kelly. And Debbie, you're going to stop me when we get to 15 because I believe we have 15 books. Next winner is Kathleen Hogan. Congratulations, Kathleen. And next is Barbara Montejo. Congratulations, Barbara. Next up, we have Marg McLaren. Marg McLaren. Congratulations, Marg. Next up, we have Tiffany Earl. Tiffany Earl, congratulations. Next up, we have Sapphire Rose out of Ventura, California. Congratulations. Next up, we have Carol Webster. Carol Webster. Debbie, how many more left do I have to call? Okay. All right. I don't know how many. 6 more. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have Terry Paulos. Terry Paulos is 1. Okay. Then we have Lisa De Silva. That's 2. Lisa De Silva. Next up, we have Debbie Skinner. Congratulations, Debbie. Next up, we have Kristen Day. I think that's 4. I may be miscounting. And then we have Amy Dufresne. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have 1 more. All right, thank you. 1 more we will call. Who are we going to call? Tinky Scott. Congratulations. Congratulations to all 15 of our winners. Thank you again to each and every one of you who attended. Make sure to email Debbie at novelnetwork.com to send her your mailing address so that she can send you the winning books. Congratulations, winners. Congratulations, authors, on your books. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And until next time, what is your next adventure by the book? Good night, everybody.